Hey, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salam ala Rasulullahi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Inshallah, in today's session, we'll continue our the subject that we were covering regarding Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu's life, and in which we were talking about the Ridda wars, which is the war against the apostasy that happened after the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Abu Bakr was tested quite a bit during this time, and most of the Arabian Peninsula was rebelling against Islamic State at that time. So we talked quite a bit in the last 2 weeks. Today, what we'll talk about is, in general, we'll talk about more about the Musaylama Kadhab and his ending. He was a false prophet who actually claimed to be a prophet in the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So before I talked about Musaylama Kadhab, just very briefly about some other ones like Tulayha al-Asadi. He was also the one who claimed his prophethood during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well. And there was a small battle that happened in which Muslims had some losses. But it was not the ending of it, and but it was taken care by later on in the time of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu an. And when Tulayha, actually, he was gathering some of the other tribes around him that included Ghatafan and Banu Asad, Banu Amir, and actually he was going for Banu Tay also, which Hatim bin Adi was from. And Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh actually reached out. He sent actually Adi bin Hatim to go and talk to his tribe, talk to his tribe and convince them to come back to Islam. And Tay was a very big tribe. They were big fighters, famous for fighting skills. And when Adi bin Hatim, when he went there, before they would, Tulayha would have gathered him, that tribe as well, along with Ghatafan and Asad, he was able to make it there. This was Abu Bakr's smart move, that he was able to do some sort of diplomatic things that done prior to even engaging into war, or letting the enemy get stronger to attack the Islamic State, especially Medina. So Adi bin Hatim made it, and but he made it kind of bit of a time, because some of the members, they already left to join Tulayha, but Adi, when they talked to them in the beginning, they were not convinced by him, did not want to go along with him. But Adi's persistence in engaging them in the discussion, he was able to convince them to stick with Islam, and he was able to convince them to stick with Islam and take the side of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh. And but they wanted to take some time. They said, well, we have to send some of the people behind the people who have already left to join Tulayha and go and talk to them and let them know, so there will not be no confusion. And they were able to get them back as well. And just to cut it short, because if we go into all these battles in detail, it will be very difficult to cover. At the end, Muslims came out victorious against Tulayha, but Tulayha was able to escape. He fled. And Tulayha was one of those false prophets who actually later on, he became a Muslim. And in the time of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh, he came down to perform the Hajj. And it was informed to Abu Bakr. Abu Bakr said, what do you want me to do with him? He became a Muslim. And in his case, he became a good Muslim. And the issue with him was, he was also embarrassed to see Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh. Hence, he did not face Abu Bakr when Abu Bakr was alive. He did not go and visit him, and he stayed away from Medina besides the Hajj when he was visiting there. So Tulayha, one of the false prophets, he did become Muslim. As we talked about before, Al-Aswad al-Ansi, the one who actually was killed, one of another false prophets. Now, the third false prophet who claimed to be the prophet later on was Sajah. and she was a prophetess, if you want to call it, false prophetess. So she claimed to be prophet after the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she was a soothsayer and kind of all those strange kind of stuff they do, and she had quite a bit of following as well. And she actually was going to get part of some spoils from actually Musaylama Kadhab, and she wanted to share whatever that Musaylama had taken over after rebelling. She wanted to take her share as well. So she went down there, and while they were discussing, because Tuleha, Musaylama, he wanted to. He said, "Okay, you can have the half of the share of the what he has got from the Quraysh." And when Sajah went there, he offered her actually to marry her, and instead of sharing things, they can get married, and they got married. And after staying 3 days, she moved back. And when she went back to her people, the people asked her that what did she get in the dowry, and she did not get anything in dowry actually. So she sent a person to talk to Musaylama regarding the dowry, and Musaylama, as deceptive he goes that in the dowry he is giving her the waiving of two of the salats, which is Salatul Fajr and Isha. So you don't have to do Salatul Fajr and Isha. That was the dowry that Musaylama suggested. Anyways, so Sajah was another person who actually did become Muslim later on as well. So now going back to the Musaylama, and which is who was from the tribe of Banu Hanifa. So Musaylama actually, when in the year of the delegation, according to some of the reports, when the Banu Hanifa tribe came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, according to some of the reports that says that he did profess to be a Muslim, become a Muslim, and some of them say that he did come, and some say that he did not come. But in general, most of them discuss this way, that he came, and actually he talked to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he came in a strange way. He was covered with a cloak, and when he met Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had a palm branch in his hand, and he said to him, "Law sa'altani hadha al-asiba ma ataytuka." The Rasulullah said that if were you to ask me for this palm branch, I would not give it to you. And other reports talk about Rasulullah's response of this was because of Musaylama was asking to be a partner in the messengership. That's one of the reports talk about. Or he was asking for to share his ruling after Rasulullah passes away. And Rasulullah's response was this. And the reports talk about that when he went back to Yamama, when he returned back, and after he returned back, he claimed to be a prophet. And he used to do a strange kind of poetry in a way that he used to try to come up with something that looks like comparative to what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was brought, but he was not able to bring anything. As a matter of fact, he made really a fool of himself. And he did send a letter to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in which he referred to himself as the Prophet of Allah, and he referred to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a messenger as well. So he said pretty much that the letter to Muhammad, the Prophet of Allah, from the Musaylama, the Prophet. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied to him that says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, min Muhammad al-Nabi ila Musaylama al-Kadhab. And this is where he was referred, from there on, he was called as a Kadhab. Kadhab means the liar. So Rasulullah says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, it is from Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet, to Musaylama Kadhab, the Musaylama the liar. Amma ba'af inna al-ardi inna arda Allahi yurithuha man yasha min ibadi. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who gives the authority over the earth whoever he wishes from his slaves. وَعَافِيَةٌ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. And the afiyah is for the muttaqeen. Muttaqeen means the one who are the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one who the consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَالسَّلَامُ عَلَى مَنِ اتَّبَعَ الْهُدَى. And it's the peace be unto the one who is guided, and who have true guidance. And then the Musaylama actually, when he sent the letter, he sent with two envoys, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that if it was not it was not if it was allowed to kill the ambassadors or the Safir or the envoys that come, he would have killed them. But he did not kill them. He asked them first that what they believe in, and they said they believe in as their letter said what the letter was. And when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he sent his letter through his envoys, and Musaylama actually killed one of them, and he cut them into pieces, because first he asked if he believed in Rasulullah sallallahu into as a prophet. He said yes, and then when he said, does he believe in Musaylama as a prophet, and he said he could not hear it. And this goes back and forth, and because he did not want to respond to him, he did not accept him as a prophet, and he ended up being martyred by Musaylama Kadhab. So Rasulullah sallallahu had things going back and forth, but there was not really a war, a battle or something happening in the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There was some discussion was happening, but I guess the Rasulullah sallallahu was not he did not have enough life in this dunya to tackle with him, but it was taken care of during the time of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu. This is how it was in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And now all this Ridda war was happening. Abu Bakr Siddiq in the beginning sent Ikrimah bin Abi Jahl to fight against the Musaylama, and he told him that to wait for Shurhabil, and once he get there with his battalion, then attack Musaylama, because Musaylama's strength was quite big. He was getting bigger and bigger, and it was needed to have a bigger army to fight against him. But Ikrimah, he did not wait for the fight for Shurahbil to come and then fight against Musaylama. And Ikrimah had quite a bit of losses, and he was defeated by Musaylama. Now, when Abu Bakr, Ikrimah sent the letter back to Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh, and Abu Bakr said, don't come with the defeated face to me. And he sent him to another location where the rest of the Muslims were fighting, and they were actually victorious, becoming victorious in those areas. And there's a very interesting step taken by Abu Bakr Siddiq here, because he did not want Ikrimah to come back defeated to Medina and bring the morale down of the people in Medina. And he did not want Ikrimah to just go and help somebody who are not really winning in their battles, because they could have gone there and they could have brought their morals down also, because this is a part of the defeated army coming and joining. So he sent them there in a position where not only that the Ikrimah's army is morale will be boosted, but also the one which are already winning, that's not a problem for them. So it was a very interesting way of Abu Bakr, how he dealt with even this kind of defeat in a battle on a smaller scale, because then later on Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh, he actually sent an army under Khalid bin Walid radiallahu anh. And when Khalid bin Walid radiallahu anh was sent there, Khalid bin Walid was told by Abu Bakr with very specific instructions, like the rest of the leaders were given the instructions. And one of them was, most of those letters included that to have the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So all the time, the connection to the aqidah of Islam was always reminded of, no matter what situation they were in. So when they were in the battlefield, it was reminded to Khalid bin Walid and the other leaders as well by Abu Bakr, to have the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you're engaging with the people, when you're with the Muslims, be merciful with the Muslims. And they were calling the Muslims, the apostates also, towards Islam first, in case they do come back. And if they don't, the only option they had was to fight or come back to Islam. So remember that when we're talking about apostates, we're talking about here the one who were rebellious to the state. And this is what Abu Bakr was up against. Okay. Then when the army of Khalid bin Walid reached there, he divided the army into five different flanks, and he assigned different Sahaba to be the one who were the banner bearers. And one of the things which was among the Arabs was that if the banner falls down, the army falls down. So whenever we talk about the banner bearers of the army, you're talking about a very important position a person was given. So when Khalid bin Walid radiallahu anh, he divided the army in that way, and then they moved forward. And in this army, in this battle that happened between the Muslims and the apostates of Banu Hanifa, there were many Sahaba who fought very furiously, and many of them were actually martyred. And at the end, Akrama was also able to join the army. And they were, according to some of the reports, there were about 10,000 of the kuffar were killed, and about 500 or 600 of the Muslims were martyred. And many of them were Huffaz also. And we'll talk a little bit about the issue of Huffaz, the Sahaba who were Huffaz al-Quran, and they were martyred as well. Now, okay. I'm trying to summarize it as much as I can because this is a very big topic otherwise. So when the battle started, Musaylama actually, he pumped up his people with a quick speech and reminding them, his soldiers, about what would happen if they lost the battle. And he said, today is the day you show your sense of honor. Really, if you are defeated, your women will be made off as slaves. You fight, so fight to preserve your lineage and to protect your women. And Khalid bin Walid on the way, he stopped on the way and built a makeshift military and command a post on a hill that overlooked Yamama. And then he divided the army, and then he had the clash with the army of Musaylama. And Musaylama, in the beginning, they did have some advantage to a degree that they were able to enter Khalid bin Walid's tent, actually, or the command post. And they found Tamim, and she was the one that, she was a wife of Malik ibn Nuwaira, whom Khalid bin Walid married after he was killed, and she went to the Ridda, and he married her. And there are some issues that later on, not in the time of Abu Bakr or the Sahaba or hundreds of years afterwards, that was an issue. But later, at the end of when the Muslims became weak, now they started talking bad things about Khalid bin Walid. They started talking about things about, oh, he married a woman when the Muslims were fighting, and many of the Muslims were martyred, and he was worried about getting married. But he got married to Tamim in a manner which is allowed in Islam. So he was following the Sharia. Like, for example, when he waited the Iddah period and then he married her, and so on. And we can find even in the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself that he married right after the battles, for example, the daughter of Huyay bin Akhtab or Juwayriya from the Bani Mustalik. So there is Sharan, nothing was wrong, and this is what Khalid bin Walid did. But anyway, so they found Tamim there, and they intended to kill her. But there was one of the leaders of Banu Hanifa, which was Mujah. Prior to Yarmouk, the Yamama started. The Battle of Yamama started against the Banu Hanifa. But there was one of the reports, there were 40 or 60 of the people from Banu Hanifa under the leadership of Mujah. They encountered the army of Khalid bin Walid, and they were able to capture them. And because they were apostates, they killed them all except Mujah was left. He was left alive. And the reason was reasons are mentioned because of he was aware of many things about the battles, and plus he was a leader. He could have been used for later on. But here, when Mujah, he's the one who was one of the prisoners was there. He forbade them actually doing so, and he said that she is a noble and good free woman, so leave her alone. So while Musaylama's soldiers were able to initially penetrate the ranks of the Muslim fighter, they did not suffer. Muslim did not suffer any important loss. And Zayd bin al-Khattab was able to kill one of their leaders, who was infamous one, Rajal bin Unfawa. So he was, then this is Zayd bin Khattab. He was the older brother of Umar bin Khattab radiallahu an, and he was one of the Sahaba who entered into fold of Islam in the early stages of Islam in Mecca, and he was participant in the Ghazwatul Badr as well. And Zayd bin Khattab later on in the same battle was one of the shuhada of Battle of Yamama, sorry, the same battle that we're talking about. So in the beginning, Musaylama army had some advantage, but it was a very short one, and Muslims they fought and they organized back, and Khalid bin Walid had placed a banner over each battalion so as to distinguish between the Muhajirin, the soldiers, and Ansari. Meaning, what he did was he divided them in a manner that now Muhajirin had their banner and Ansar had their banner and own banners. So now each one is trying to make sure that their side is not the one that is showing the weakness towards for the Muslims, and that actually helped. And this is one of the war tactics Khalid bin Walid have tried, which was beneficial for the Muslims. So during this battle, and then at the end, they were able to, Banu Hanifa was able to seclude themselves in one of the orchards, which was surrounded by the trees and the walls, and the Muslims were not able to enter. And one of the Sahaba, he actually told the Muslims that to throw him over the barriers or the wall. And then he fell inside, and then he opened the door, and the Muslims entered, and they were able to take over Banu Hanifa. And Wahshi, one of the freed slaves and the one who used to be the slave of Hind, the one who martyred or killed Hamza radiallahu an, he's the one who was able to see what's his name, Musaylama Kadhab, and he threw his spear, and that went through his body. And Abu Dujana is the one, he saw him in that state, and he finished him off. So Abu Dujana radiallahu anh is the same Sahabi, the one who was famous for his red bandana he used to put around his head. And one of the reports talk about the one he did in Ghazwatul Badr. So Abu Dujana is the one who finished him off, and Abu Dujana radiallahu anh was another Sahabi who was also martyred in this famous battle. Another Sahabiya who played a huge role in this battle was Nusayba. Nusayba radiallahu anha is the one who's also called Ammara. And she's the same Sahabiya who fought and protected Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the Battle of Uhud as well. And she fought furiously, and she had about 12 wounds during this battle. Other famous Sahaba who were martyred in this battle, besides Abu Dujana, Zayd bin Khattab, and also the Sahabi which was Tufail ad-Dawsi. Tufail ibn Amr ad-Dawsi, he was the famous Sahabi who came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when Rasulullah sallallahu was still in the Mecca, and he brought the people from Daws along with him later when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam migrated to Medina, and he established a state over there. So he was another Sahabi who was among the ones who were martyred. And then when when this issue of when Muslims were victorious and they came back, they realized that many of the Sahaba during this battle were martyred. And Umar bin Khattab radiallahu an was the first one who realized that many of the Huffaz al-Quran have been martyred here. So he realized that this can be problematic because even though the Quran as a whole was written in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they were katibin wahi, the transcribers of the Quran who used to write the Quran in the presence of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And they had everything was written on, whether it was pieces of leather or bones or stone tablets or parchments or whatsoever, or leaves. But the Sahaba, the main way of preserving the Quran was the memorization of the Quran. And that was a normal thing. And so the whole Quran was memorized and written in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam by many Sahaba. And now many Sahaba were martyred who were the carriers of the Quran. So Umar radiallahu an, he went to Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu an, and he told him that about the problem that can happen, and we may lose the Quran because of the Sahaba who are the memorizers of the Quran if they all die. So he asked him to collect the Quran. See, I want to make sure that we understand this idea that the Quran was collected. It was already memorized and written, so it was collected into one location in the time of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh, rather than to say that it was the first time somebody was writing the Quran and the people were writing just from the memory or something. It was not like that. So anyway, so when Umar went to Abu Bakr, and Abu Bakr was reluctant to do so, he said, how can I do something that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not do? And Umar reminded him and told him that no, this is wallah, this is good, this is something good, this is something good. And he continued to say that to a point that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opened the chest of Abu Bakr the way it was open for Umar. And of course there are many other evidences from the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that pointed towards that this action is actually from the evidences of the Quran and Sunnah that shows that it should have been written or should have been preserved the way they preserved it. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that inna nahnu nazzalna dhikra wa inna lahu lahafidhun, that we are the one who have revealed this dhikr, this book, this kitab, the Quran, and indeed we are the one who protect it. And our protection by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring to through the memorization of the people, and even by writing and all those means. And Allah, the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam also mentioned about that there is no harming in retribution or harming. So what could be a bigger harm than losing the Quran? So when Umar continuously was reminding Abu Bakr about protecting the Quran this way, it opened Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opened his chest as well, and he was able to listen to him, and he proceeded with that. And then they said, okay, how do we do that? So Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh, he summoned Zayd bin Thabit al-Ansari radiallahu anh to come to him. And when Zayd radiallahu anh came, and Abu Bakr told him what Umar told him. So Umar was sitting there, but Abu Bakr is the one who approached to Zayd radiallahu anh, and he asked him about the same thing. And Zayd said the very similar thing, and he was very reluctant to do so. And even when he agreed, because after Abu Bakr was keep saying the way Umar told Abu Bakr, Zayd was able to understand that that has to be done. But he said if Abu Bakr would have asked him to move a mountain from one place to another location, that would have been easier for him than to the task that Abu Bakr was asking him to do. The reason was because they understood, well, this is the message that was revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this was a humongous task, because this means that you are talking about putting the word of Allah Azza wa Jal together. So the next generations that will come, they will have it, and making sure that there is no sort of corruption can happen while this collection work is happening. So a committee was made, and Zayd bin Thabit radiallahu anhu is the one who was leading this. And while they were gathering the Quran, the way it was set up was, and anyone who had written the Quran, by the instructions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He had to bring that piece that he wrote, and he had to bring the witnesses along with him that can be the witnesses that they were witnesses that it was written in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And they brought piece by piece, ayah by ayah, or the surahs by surah, and they brought them all together until. And by the way, in this whole process, not only the issue of the one who have written is bringing the piece, whether it was a parchment or a piece of leather or a tablet, whatsoever it was, but it was also memorized by many of the Sahaba. So it was in the memorization plus the original transcript that was written in the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was brought together. And this is how Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu was able to, in that time, he was able to do this task, one of the biggest tasks of the Khilafah of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, if you want to call it, was one of the biggest tasks was to collect the whole Quran. And that Quran stayed with Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu. That was agreed upon by all the Sahaba. There was a ijma' of the Sahaba. The whole generation of the Sahaba agreed upon that that is the same Quran that was revealed to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that they had it together that way. So the Quran was preserved by Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh, that was revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and written in his life. And that was one of the tasks that happened because of the trigger point was the Battle of Yamama, the Ridda war that happened, and that helped the Muslims to start looking into the preservation of the Quran as well. So that's all I had. I want to discuss today about the Ridda war. And inshallah, if there's any questions or comment, I would like to